Captain's Log, Stardate 2263.2. Today is our 966th day in deep space, a little under 3 years into our 5-year mission. The more time we spend out here, the harder it is to tell where one day ends and the next one begins. It can be a challenge to feel grounded when even gravity is artificial. But, well, we do what we can to make it feel like home. As for me, things have started to feel a little episodic. The farther out we go, the more I find myself wondering what it is we're trying to accomplish. If the universe is truly endless, then are we not striving for something forever out of reach?
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
This is Cheapseat Reviews.
Dick measuring. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, good old Karen Starfleet, like, it's Nebula adjacent.
Do they still have sandwiches there?
I think I'm a bit of a philosophizer, too.
Hello, and thank you for listening to Cheapseat Reviews, the podcast that explores the Hollywood film industry for the greater good.
Damn it, Jim, the greater good.
Nice. I like that.
Welcome.
This is episode 422. 422. And tonight we're talking about Star Trek Beyond. It is Beyond. They went to the infinity and beyond. So that's where we are now, is those places. So I am Sean Allred, and joining me tonight is Andrew. He ripped his shirt again, Jimison.
Yeah, that's a thing with Kirk, right? He has to rip shirts. It happens to me, but it usually happens with underwear, and it's because I've had them for 30 years. And
you're a typical dude that doesn't like to throw away his underwear.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right.
Yeah,
that's cool. All right. Well, and making their bold return, right? They boldly returned. How's that? Is Mark. Sabotage always. Hold on. The song Sabotage always breaks the things. And Joe, who likes the beats and shouting, from the Digital Dissection podcast.
I mean, that's 100% true. That's the best part about my house, is that it has beats and shouting.
Nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, that and your podcast itself too, of course, has the beats and shouting.
That it does. We have some fresh, free to use beats that we start you off with and end you with every episode. That Mark handpicked himself.
Nice.
Because that was his job this season.
I did. I found some music online that sounded good, and we went with it.
So welcome back, guys. We're excited to have you back on.
Yeah, always happy to come back, especially when you were talking about one of our favorite movies here.
Oh, nice. So, I mean, Joe is sitting here in my camera. I see two things. I see Superman over his left shoulder and a Star Trek uniform on his body. So this is exciting stuff. So obviously I invited the right podcast to come on and talk about Star Trek.
Oh yeah, and this is one of two Star Trek uniforms that I have. I made the other one by hand, but it's next gen. It would not fit into this conversation.
Nice. Nice.
I say you picked at least one half of the right podcast, because Joe is all about the Trekkie life. Yeah. So,
Mark, you want to just go home? I mean, you want to hang up, or you're gonna hang out with us?
You may not even notice if I leave.
That's not true. There's no way I could not notice those sultry baritone tones coming out of your face there. So
I was going to say, do you have any smooth jazz that you have to play tonight that I can lead into? Because we can do that right now.
Oh, I'm sure you can. Andrew's good at that too. So I think you and he. I mean, between the two of you, it's like the sexiest voices in podcasting right now. It's pretty great.
Well, I don't bring mine out on the sheer fact that I don't like to compare it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a what's the thing?
I don't know.
Dick measuring. That's what I
Oh.
was thinking.
Oh.
Ah, yes.
There we go.
Ah,
Yeah.
yes. The penis.
But
Yes.
maybe we can lure it out with some sweet, sweet saxophone later.
No, I like to throw in the accent once in a while, but yeah,
You know, we
I
do
just
a lot
have
of
fun with it.
we do a lot of voices on our program, and sometimes it's just the right time.
Right.
I love that this is like almost Morgan Freeman, but like sexy Morgan Freeman. I don't know.
I feel like I was gonna say I feel like it's a little pervy Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
But
It's
Yeah.
the Morgan
like he's-
Freeman that was in jail a little too long.
Yeah. I learned the warmth.
Of Andy Dufresne.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to go further into that, and I stopped myself.
That's
but yeah,
probably good.
Yeah.
That's what she said.
hmm
We're all starting it off right. So this is 2016's Star Trek Beyond, starring Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, Carl Urban, and a bunch of other really great movie stars. And that's one thing that I do want to talk about at some point throughout the night is how this movie was, this series was cast compared to, the original series and whatnot, and those movies, because that is a significantly different kind of casting, and we can kind of compare and contrast that. And this is also the second of the trilogy that we've done for the podcast. We have done Into Darkness, but that was like 300 episodes ago. That
been a
when
while.
we did it when that movie came out. Like as soon as it came out to stream, that's when we reviewed it. So
I think that may have even been before my time.
it might have been.
It's actually fitting because Mark and I did Star Trek 2009 on our podcast.
It's true.
So by our podcast combined, this fits. This is how we hit Beyond. Because we come
Nice.
together to take care of it.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah, we become one Captain Planet of like suits in the Star Trek universe, all the colors.
Yeah. Yes. Star Trek Into Darkness, subtitled Truth and Consequences,
Ooh.
episode 23.
Oh yeah, that was
So-
that was well before my time.
That was a long time ago. Yeah, June 20th, 2014.
The year was 1894.
I was but a
Weird.
glimmer in Sean's eye at that
Yeah.
point.
Yes. Pepperidge Farm, remember that episode.
They do remember that episode, yeah. My dearest Martha, tonight we record a podcast about no. All right. If I had the the music from the documentary, the thing. You know what I'm talking about? The
That
Ken
one.
Burns.
Ken
Ken
Burns
Burns does all those
Oh.
documentaries, and he always
The
has
Civil
like
War?
that violin. This really sappy violin. My dearest Martha, it is the 2014. All right, I can't obviously compete with the Mark voice either. But yeah, 2016, excuse me, into or beyond. I can't think of what I'm trying to say. And
It's okay. We've just listed all of them, so it's
yes,
you
we
went
have.
Star Into Beyond, so
Yeah.
it's all there.
It is all beyond. So directed by Justin Lin, right? So this is not, this is not a J.J. Abrams film. This is, he stepped aside. He's an executive producer, but he was busy making Star Wars at this point. He was he had just finished working on not a New Hope, but the Force
A
Awakens.
New Hope 2.
The New Hope
Yes.
Part 2. Yeah.
A newer hope.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, he had also just completed making Into Darkness, which is just Wrath of Khan 2. Wrather of
Well.
Khan.
well, it's the Wrath of Khan light.
It is. I mean, it's Khan, and he has much wrath in his actions
Yeah.
and things.
Yeah.
Wrath of Khan, brought to you by LaCroix.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I was initially like skeptical when this movie first started getting any sort of trailers or previews, and we found out it was Justin Lin doing this, who got his I guess directing fame from 3 Fast and the Furious titles with
Yeah.
Tokyo Drift, 6, and then eventually 9, which comes out after this movie. But the first thing you see, one of the first things you see in the trailer is Kirk just going ham on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? If someone says we gotta get a team together, we see Kirk on that, I'm fine with it. Let's
I
go
think
out, guns ablazing, phasers
I think
ablazing, and have a
they
great
should have
time.
they should have drifted the Enterprise in this one.
I
Just
mean, they probably should have.
they probably should have,
Hmm.
or at least the Franklin. Like just
Oh yeah. I mean, if you had swapped out sabotage with Tokyo Drift in that
mhm,
close to ending scene,
yeah,
I mean, same effect. Does the
exactly.
same thing.
You don't need the Enterprise when you got family.
And
Sorry.
no, it's fine. Well, and it's funny because I do remember, so I'm recalling back to when they announced that he was the director, and a lot of Trek fans were really concerned, like, well, wait a minute, we don't need another action movie, right? We've already had
Mhm.
2 action movies in the JJ movies. We need to get something less actiony. We want to get it whatever. And then when we found out that Simon Pegg was writing it, we're
Mm.
like, well,
Mhm.
okay, let's see what happens then. And
Mhm.
for so I guess I'll say it now, and we still have 5-word reviews and all this stuff. We're gonna do the normal episode, but
Mhm.
I okay. When I first saw it in the theater, I was kind of annoyed, and there's a couple of big things that annoyed me when I walked out of the theater. But I've seen this movie since then probably 10 or 15 times, and every time I watch it, I like it more each time. Like even like when I watched it today for this episode,
Mhm.
it's like, gosh, this movie is just so fun, and I just like it, and it just makes me happy, and the jokes work, and it works for me. So I'm excited to talk about it because I know the Kelvin timeline in general has some uh, animosity towards it. I was talking to a Twitter today, and somebody was like, I don't like any of them. They're terrible. I only like TNG stuff. I'm like, that's fine. And he's like, I didn't
Mhm.
even know they made a third one. It's like, okay, well, that's fine. Just if you don't want to watch it, then don't watch it. But
That was just me trolling, Sean.
well, that's fine too. That does happen. So of course that's usually Sam that does that, but
True.
he's busy. So let's go ahead and do our 5-word review, shall we? This week, let's start with Andrew.
Well, I think Toby Keith said it best: a little less talk and a lot more action. Uh, to me, I know that we got a lot of action from JJ, but this one to me was just an action film. It was just action and adventure, and it didn't have the. And again, and this is Joe and Mark. I don't. I'm not a Trekkie at all, and so I don't. I've seen all of the Star Trek films, never seen the original series, maybe 1 or 2 episodes, um, years and years ago, and a few episodes of Next Gen. But to me, this doesn't have the heart that the original Trek films had. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I- and I'm sure we'll get to this later, but I always relate everything to Wrath of Khan because that's the one that sticks out to me the most in the original series or the original films. And I mean, I know we're comparing one uh, universe to another with this, what is Kelvin universe or whatever they call this. Is that what it is?
Yeah, the Kelvin
Yes, the
universe, yeah,
Kelvin timeline. Yeah.
Timeline.
or
Thank you.
timeline, yeah.
Yeah, I know we're kind of comparing apples and oranges in a way. Um, Not saying that any of the Kelvin timeline movies are terrible in by any means. They are pretty, very gorgeous as far as how they're made. And I made a comment at one of our last episodes that when the ship goes into warp, I always thought it looked a little funny in the original. And I love how this warp looks on screen. I don't know why. It's like a little hug of a bubble that wraps
Mm.
itself around the ship,
Yeah.
and then
Mhm.
it's just really pretty. And I knew JJ would do that when he took over the franchise to do these first, the first reboot in '09. And I can't complain about that at all. But there's just, to me, it loses some of its. I've always seen Star Trek as kind of a soap opera in space, sort of. Maybe not a soap opera. It's not a good analogy, but there's the story is always what's more important. I've always looked at Star Wars as the action is more important. Star Trek, the words and the meaning behind what they're doing is more of the main focus. Am I making sense, or am I just
You are.
rambling?
No, you're
Oh, no,
100% right. Yeah.
Okay.
absolutely. Hmm.
Okay. So that's kind of where I stand on it. It to me it wasn't terrible, but I own this. I bought it on Vudu many years ago, or maybe I bought the DVD and it just came with a digital one. But I own it, but I've never watched it. Like I own the movie and I watched it the first time I bought it, but I've never seen it since then. So there was a lot in this that I was going, oh yeah, I remember that now. So
All right.
I
Okay.
forgot Idris Elba was in this movie.
Yeah, apparently so did
Mhm.
Sam.
Yeah.
Because Sam was messaging us too, going, "Oh my gosh, that's Idris Elba." So yeah, he's the bad guy. And it was funny because all of the promotional stuff that they were doing, he and Pine together, they were doing this big contest where you could enter a contest and go to the bridge to the set and meet some of the cast and then watch the movie like on the view screen there.
Huh.
Like
That's
but
cool.
like the two of them were like bantering back and forth. It was really funny. Like they were like ribbing each other. Like Chris Pine sitting in the chair, and Idris Elba would come over and be like, "Why did you have to sit in the chair?" He's like they're all this band. It was really funny. So I don't know if those videos are online somewhere, but I'm sure they are.
Oh, one more thing. Sorry.
Yeah.
The others as well, I felt like the ship is a character.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned this before. And in this one, I felt like it was kind of an afterthought, in some ways.
Well, the majority of the movie has nothing to do with the Enterprise.
Exactly.
It's
And so, I almost looked at it like they're cheating on the Enterprise with this Franklin ship that they find. So, anyway, that's where I stand.
okay. That's fine. So, and that was in fact that was something that I hit on when I first saw this. So, like in the trailers, it shows the Enterprise getting the hell beat out of it, and so I always thought, oh, okay, well that's how the movie ends. Is like the Enterprise goes down. No, the Enterprise dies in the first 10 minutes of the movie. And now, Joe, you and I we are cut of the same cloth, right? We're both the Trekkies of the podcast here.
Very much so. Hmm.
Every time I see it, every time I get emotional. When Scotty says the nacelles they're gone, it's hard. Like it literally hurts. It's as if someone just shot a puppy or something like that. Like this is, what I'm saying? Like to your point, Andrew, like again, the Enterprise is a character and it's one of my favorite characters. It would be as if someone, in the first 5 minutes of Back to the Future 3, they destroy the DeLorean in a very unceremonious way. It would kind of hurt a little bit. And
Yeah.
I don't have a way to make you feel emotions, Mark. I don't know what your favorite movie is, or your favorite vehicle like Andrew. But
Yeah, if you drop a perfectly good sandwich, that might get
Yeah.
a rise out of me.
yeah. like in
Yeah.
like in Birds of Prey when she finally gets her egg sandwich and then gets it knocked out of her hands and she just loses her mind.
Yeah.
Or like John Belushi in Animal House where they drop all that liquor in front of him.
Yeah.
It's just
Oh.
It's just so sad.
yeah, it's not good.
Yeah.
It's not good.
But you're not wrong,
Yeah.
Andrew. It is the Enterprise, and I will say this. So 2 weeks ago when we did Star Trek V, the Enterprise was a punchline.
Yeah.
And then of course
Thanks.
last week
Kirk.
the Enterprise also isn't. It was destroyed because we watched the third one. So we also. So we've now watched in 2 movies back to back the Enterprise get destroyed.
I was gonna say in this movie it gets turned into a Spirit of Halloween.
Now I do want to ask Joe this. I don't know if Mark or Andrew would notice, but did you know that they had to redesign the Enterprise for this movie?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of because didn't it get subtle redesigns in both Into Darkness and this movie?
I
Because Mhm.
well, go ahead.
Oh, no, I know that's just something that I know I'll look at especially when ships from movie to movie because especially my favorite Enterprise is the E. So going from First Contact to Nemesis and then into Nemesis was the last
Yeah,
one. It
Insurrection
was
was the win there. Yeah,
Insurrection, yeah. My least favorite of the next gen movies. That got subtle changes each movie. So it was the same here where I know I think the nacelles actually I think it got closer and slightly brought down a little bit more, and I think the cargo bay changed, didn't it?
the big thing that they changed, and this is just such nerd talk, but the big thing they
Hmm.
changed is like the neck of the ship. So
Oh.
in the
Hmm.
'09 version, the back, like the slope of the neck, actually goes all the way to the middle of the nacelles. Right,
Oh
it's a
yeah.
bigger
Hmm.
body that's supporting the saucer. And the reason why they had to change it is so that when they, cut the throat of the
Yeah.
Enterprise, they
Hmm.
needed a smaller piece of real estate for those ships to cut into. I know, whatever.
So, in concept drawings, the Enterprise actually had apple bottom jeans and the boots with the fur,
It did.
really accentuated that long neck.
Yeah, they did.
Mm.
Yep.
It is a sexy
And
neck.
yep. And then one producer's like, we can't have this in the goodie room right away. This is not big dick player time. We've got to pull this back. Make that neck a little less thick.
Yeah.
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 The Yorktown is looking at her. Yeah. Bringing it
Nice.
back. That's what we do on our
Nice.
podcast.
All right.
So,
Well,
Mhm.
Mark, since you're on the microphone, why don't you go and tell us your 5-word review?
well, my 5-word review is feels like a classic episode because I grew up watching the original series with my dad, so I do have some exposure to many of the things that they referenced in this movie.
Mhm.
And to me, I really bonded a lot with this movie the more that I watched it, but I did actually like it quite a bit at first, and I continued to like it. But as I've advanced in age, as you can tell by my hairline and just overall the state of my skin, I really do feel what Kirk is feeling in this movie. You know, you see a man who's traveled, he's adventured, he achieved what he wanted to achieve, and now he's without purpose, or like at least his purpose feels like it might be winding down a little for him. He's questioning a lot of stuff. He's not the Kirk that we've come to know and love. So I really bond a lot with that. I understand it. Sometimes you just feel tired and you can't explain why. And I feel like Kirk is at that point without kids somehow. So, yeah, I
Mhm.
definitely feel it. And it sets the tone for a very different kind of movie, from his standpoint. And so I would say it's fundamentally different from that standpoint, right? You guys talked about how the Enterprise is not the focus of this movie. It's not its own character. That's because it's never supposed to be. It's about these characters that we've known and loved for many decades. We're not quite saying goodbye to them, but it definitely feels like there's a bit of finality to it.
Okay. I will push back on it doesn't I think the Enterprise is a character. I think it's supposed to be a character. It's supposed to hurt when it dies. It's supposed to hurt when it dies in or in, the third movie. Like you're supposed to feel that energy when you get to see it for the first time or see it again in 4. Like I don't know. I think it's a character. I mean, there are other ships that are characters. The Millennium Falcon is a character, right? Like it's the third member of the Han Chewie crew, and I think there are other ships like that. The Battlestar Galactica. The main ship is I forgot the name of it. Gosh, it's the Battlestar, right? It's the Galactica. That's what it's called. Gosh dang it! Like that's a ship. Like that's a character, right? So that was
Did they
hard.
give you a clue? I mean, come
Yeah, it's
on.
like Battlestar something Galactica ship. I don't know. Uh,
Spaceball 1. It's
Spaceball
definitely
One,
Pronounced
Spaceball 1.
Serenity.
Serenity. Yeah, again, is a character that they talk to. So I think
Mhm.
and again, I mentioned the DeLorean. The DeLorean is a character in the movie, and you kind of feel bad when, at the end of the movie, it's all it gets hit by the train. Like you feel emotion. So anyway, that's
Well,
only
it kind of makes you feel like the adventure is over
a little bit.
because that's what it feels like when you see those icons
Mhm.
of movies or characters, if you want to call them that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it feels like the Enterprise is like your your movie car equivalent. I mean, even going back to the 2009 movie where Scotty says he'd like to get his hands on her ample nacelles, if you can pardon the engineering pun.
Yeah.
It's just the idea of, it's a machine that is more than a machine because in Star Trek, the Enterprise always has been more than a machine. While it's not a member of the crew necessarily. I've brought up before how uh, the ship is a metaphor for the Earth itself, and the crew are the people on the Earth. So we love the ship for different reasons, and I think I can always respect when people will see it one way or another. So that's how I always see it. Is I love it because it looks cool. I see it as what's transporting us through to the future. Um, it's it's a character, but not a character necessarily in like the same way as the Falcon, because the Falcon is your fun car you had as a teenager that was always breaking down. It was a piece of crap, but you still loved it, and that's how that ship kind of connected with so many of us. Whereas the Enterprise is like the Corvette that we wish we had growing up, and even when eventually a new awesome Corvette comes out, you still really love this one, even though it was a wedge on wheels.
That's no way to talk about the Falcon.
Hey, when you spend 3 movies saying "I thought I fixed that," like
Yeah.
it's just the truth.
Yeah.
I'm more pointing out the fact that like Han or
Lando.
Harrison Ford
Oh,
calls
there,
it.
yeah, the
You never
Falcon.
heard of the Millennium Falcon, and
Yeah.
you're like, bro, why'd you say it that
Never heard of
way
a Falcon.
that one time, and then the rest of it's like Falcon, but suddenly Millennium Falcon is
Mhm.
spelled with a U. Yeah, you never heard of the Falcon?
Well, it's the same
Sorry.
thing. It's like they can't. No one can. Is it Han or Han? Like no one's name
Leah
is
or
is.
Leia.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all
Yeah.
whatever.
Why
As
is
a
Lando and Han's
princess.
clothes at the end?
Yeah.
These are questions we'll never know the answers to.
No.
He doesn't have clothes, bro. Where the hell is Luke didn't just bring, like a friggin' travel bag. He literally left with the clothes he was wearing. Fortunately, he just happened to fit the exact size of Han Solo.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking Lando is in Han's clothes at the end of Empire.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
Mhm.
maybe they established a rule, you
Well,
know?
there's
Everyone just gets Han's pants.
in fairness, Han did take the ship from Lando. It's quite possible that Han is actually wearing Lando's clothes this entire time because he can't afford to buy his own.
It's
Look at that.
There's just the closet's been the same on that ship the
Yeah.
entire time.
There's just a lot less capes.
Yeah.
Which really, like, Han, what are you doing? Like when we have the choice to wear a cape.
Go for the cape.
Fantastic.
That's right. All right, Joe.
Sorry, we Star Wars tangent and a Star Trek.
Yeah.
I know we would get yelled at by some other listeners, I'm sure. But I mean, in fairness, these three, the Kelvin movies, they do feel like Star Wars kind of movies. They are a little bit more
They do.
action. Now, I will say this: I do like, to Andrew's point, right? Star Trek is typically tried to be about, subjects, about, not just the words,
more-
but
It's more cognitive.
yes.
Mhm.
That's a good
Yeah.
word for it. It's more kind of self-aware and self-serious. I mean, the Wrath of Khan is, it has there's two main themes in that movie, right? There's the theme of revenge, but there's also the theme of growing older and accepting that. And this movie has the theme of revenge and Kirk accepting that he's growing older and dealing with it. So maybe they borrowed some same themes. But then the other theme that they also really push is the Starfleet, mentality of, you can't break a bundle, you can't break a stick in a bundle, right? It's about
Mhm.
Being diverse and having a large group of people to have your back, and then so just really pushing the ideals of the Federation. And and that's I think that's really cool to do that, to have that as a subject matter in the movie, right? Because it's it gives the movie some more depth than just, hey, here's a bad guy and he wants to kill
Hmm.
people and we're the good guys and we have to stop him. Like there's some more there's more to that, because the bad guy in this case is a guy who, like Khan, felt that he had been not only betrayed by the Federation but abandoned. He'd been forgotten. You know, he was put on this, because the Franklin was not, even at its time, was not a great ship. It was already a little bit outdated by the time,
Hmm.
the Romulan Wars had ended. And
Oh.
so, anyway, there's some more backstory there, but we'll save that for something else. Joe, what's your 5-word review?
Um, Mine is going to be gasps. Tune in next week, and it's for pretty much the same reason that Mark had, in that um, a lot of the comparisons we made so far to other Star Trek movies is how it does feel dramatically different, and the Kelvin timeline does that in general. But this one especially does, because it doesn't feel like a movie. It feels like it's an old two-part episode of the show that we've got to see run like marathon back-to-back style. Um, so we have something done wonderfully in this movie, in that we actually have lots of references to things in the Star Trek series and in the franchise, but they're not like hitting you in the face like they did in the first two films of this movie.
Mhm.
My favorite character of the old series has always been McCoy. So
Mm.
when we look at him in this movie, one, Carl Urban has done an amazing job with the
Oh,
character,
he kills
all
it.
three movies.
Yeah.
But they have him lay off like the bones metaphors constantly that he was known for, his character had been known for, and he's not like hitting you in the face with a metaphor every 5 minutes like he did in the first few. So we still get to see, and we get to see the relationship between like him and Spock evolve, as going from this this anger and hatred for each other, but at the same time respecting each other, to genuinely enjoying each other. It was fun to see.
Yeah.
And again, like that whole like opening sequence to this movie was just beautiful. It was honestly one of the best parts of the Kelvin timeline, where you
Mhm.
have Kirk going through parts of the ship, talking about how life has been changing now that they are in deep space. This is everything that they were hoping to get in the past two movies, and now they're finally here. And so, what do they do with it? Because they've been out here for so long, the days are starting to blur together. The whole, like, even the scene where it says things have become episodic, and you've got Kirk looking over the same uniform many times over in his closet, showing just this other great way that everything is starting to just be like it was the day before. And even that a line he ends with, if space is truly infinite, then what are we actually hoping to accomplish here? Because they're never going to see all of it. So, like, is it worth actually exploring? He's actually beginning to question if deep space was the thing for him. And then in the movie, we have this other element of, like, him not wanting to celebrate his birthday because that's the same day his father died, and he compares his career in Starfleet to his father's, where like his father joined because he felt he was making a difference and Starfleet was the way to go for humanity, and he just went in on a dare. And so maybe he's not who he thought he was anymore. So we have this extreme, like, identity crisis that Kirk is going through, and through the movie we see him actually evolve through that. Plus, like, even like the meta stuff that's going on with the fact that the real world things are influencing the movie, with Leonard Nimoy passing away
Mhm.
shortly before this finished. So we see that old Spock from the original universe has died in this movie. We get a nod to George Takei and his real life relationship through Sulu in this movie, even though
Mhm.
Takei's got on record saying, like, I appreciate it, but you didn't have to change the character for me. That's really, you didn't have to do that. So it just has this great feeling of watching the TV show again, as opposed to watching the movies. So that's something that I greatly appreciated. And again, like I said, references to other things going on in the franchise. There are a lot of like Enterprise references from the Enterprise series in here that I really appreciated, like the Zindi War, the fact that Idris Elba's character was a part of Mako, which is like the last like resemblance of a military on the Earth that we see come in like I think it's like season 3 of Enterprise. And it turns out that it shortly dies. So again, like when you pointed out, Sean, that like when they put him on a ship and it's already an outdated, crappy ship, it definitely is. I mean, Mako is still around in the time of Enterprise, and the NX-01 is the first Warp 5 ship. So you have to think when Mako finally goes under, Enterprise is already wrapped up as a series. We've gone a few like years ahead of that, and now we're sticking you on the first Warp 4 ship. It's like kind of like almost like a slap in the face. Thanks for your service. Here's something to keep you kind of going, just to get shut you up. Is it kind of what it feels like for Elba's character? So it just has, in my mind, a lot going on. So even though it doesn't feel like a traditional Trek movie, and it does still have that more Star Wars like action, I still think it's like an enjoyable, like this is like me staying up late to watch Star Trek. Again, like I did when I was younger.
Okay.
So, um, well, first of all, I absolutely agree with everything you said. You're spot on. Um, I do want to ask this question though. Again, we're getting into the nerd here, so Mark and Andrew can zone out for a second. I always thought it was strange that Scotty does say this is the first Warp 4 ship. Well, the Enterprise, which is the 01, meaning the first of this design, it was famously went warp factor 5 in the series. Like there was a whole episode about them breaking, going to 5. Like, is it a goof? Did Simon Pegg write that wrong, or like I don't understand how to make this line? Like, is it a goof?
It's a different timeline. It's a different timeline.
It's not. Everything before 09 is the same. That's all still the same. It's when the events of the 09 movie, that's when we have the branch off and everything changes.
Well, I don't know because like I said, like the NX-01, that was the first Warp 5 ship, and that thing when it would push Warp 5, it'd also be like on the verge of breaking every time it would get there. So when you get like the Constitution class ships that our NCC 1701 is hitting Warp 5 and not breaking, I think is kind of a big deal for it. It's kind of like how like we equate to Edison inventing the light bulb. He didn't invent the light bulb, but he made a light bulb that didn't burn out after a couple weeks, and it could actually keep going for a long period of time with like 20 other people working with him. But I think it's kind of the same deal here, whereas it is a big deal that they go warp 5, kind of like it's even like it's a big deal that Voyager is going warp 10, even though like we could do that with the Enterprise D. But Voyager also pushes like, hey, what happens when you go? You're like just a smidgen beyond warp 10, and things actually start to get a little crazy. So I think it's kind of that big deal of that it is a warp 5 ship that's not like rattling itself to pieces as it hits warp 5.
Okay, I think you put more thought into it than they did. I think it's a busted line. All right, so my 5 review is I have 2 of them. 2 hours of fun Trek and a good way to end. Now, when they made this movie, they didn't know that this was going to be the last one. But as things are looking,
they were making another one.
Well, they've been trying to make another one for about 5 years. There was rumor that Quentin Tarantino was going to write one and direct one, and then that's gotten whatever. They've had 2 or 3 different directors associated with the movie, but at this point, I mean, even like the studio just like announced on Twitter, like 3 months ago, Joe, or whatever. It was like, "Hey, Chris Pine and the gang are all back for the movie," and Chris Pine was like, "What? We're doing a movie?"
That's true.
And then pretty recently, I think someone asked Zachary Quinto, like, "Hey, so how's the movie coming?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's kind of dead. It's not."
Yeah.
Like they Paramount released that weekend because it was supposed to be. So it's not going to happen. I think this is the end.
Hmm.
Okay.
So, but I mean, and that's okay, right? You get a trilogy, and
Yeah.
I think that's all right. It would have been cooler. Frankly, I mean, I'm loving the shows, right? Paramount is putting all this money into these shows, and I think they're all really good for their own reasons. And if they wanted to make more movies, right? Because there's a lot of money to be made in movies, I would be okay with either a Strange New Worlds movie or making a different crew altogether. And let's go past the Enterprise E and have a new crew entirely, and let's meet some new characters and do that. So I'm all for it either way. So I teased it earlier, or maybe teased is the wrong word, but I did kind of mention how this movie is cast obviously very different than the original cast. Because the original cast are they were TV people, right? And most of them were pretty much unknowns. I mean, even William Shatner wasn't, a huge name at the time. He had done some stuff, and Leonard Nimoy had done some things. But for the most part, these guys were pretty much unknowns. And then they made, 6 movies together. But even then, they weren't movie stars. They were Star Trek actors.
Mhm.
Shatner would do some things, and Leonard Nimoy would go on to direct 3 Men and a Baby and stuff like that. But, for the most part, they were Star Trek people. So then they decide to make this movie, and everyone except Zachary Quinto are movie stars, right? I mean, Chris Pine, at this point, Chris Pine was mostly known for, Princess Bride 2,
Yeah.
right?
Princess Diaries.
Princess Diaries, thank you. No.
Hmm.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Princess Diaries too, yeah.
Yep. And he was in, I think, Smoking Aces. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
He was one of the weird like redneck hillbilly people in that, which he did well. He played that part really fun.
Yeah.
So, hmm
But I mean, Carl Urban had already been,
yeah.
he had already been Varamir, whatever, in Lord of the Rings. And, Simon Pegg had already had his, things going on. And Zoe Saldana, she'd already done Pirates of the Caribbean and a
Avatar.
do what?
She did Avatar before this.
It was the same year, wasn't it? Wasn't Avatar also 09?
Was that 2009?
Or-
Thought that was a little sooner.
Or 2010?
Maybe. Or
They-
maybe it was after.
They were kind of right there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean these are movie stars. Of course Zachary
Mhm.
Quinto was known for Heroes. But
Yep.
that's I don't know. I loved the casting. I always thought that the
Mhm.
casting for these movies were just fantastic. I just thought
Yeah.
they were.
Yeah, absolutely. John Cho was in the Harold and Kumar movies.
Oh yeah, that's
before
right.
this.
Yeah.
Anton Yelchin, I think, was an Alpha Dog, which is a solid film. But yeah, no, like you said, basically every person headlining or getting billing in this movie has movie experience. I'm sure Quinto probably did some small stuff before he was in Heroes, as far as like movies go. But yeah, no, everyone before this, like film was their thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've always loved the cast. I think it's fantastic. And one other thing I do want to mention. Okay, so all right, back to the movie itself. The other thing that really hit on, and I'd be interested to see, Andrew and Mark, some of the things that you either liked or that you didn't like, about the movie. But the thing that one of the big things that always annoyed me was that this Yorktown space station, this beautiful, snow globe in space, right? And the music that we got to do a thing in this movie that we haven't done in a little while, right? So, Andrew, I don't know, you haven't seen it probably in forever, and Mark, I don't know the last time you watched the motion picture. But in the motion picture, we spent like 5 full minutes just admiring the ship, right? I mean, it was porn, right? It was these beautiful shots of whatever, right? We haven't gotten a chance to do that in a while, right? Because in the 09 Trek, when we get to see the Enterprise for the first time, we get about 15 seconds of it before we're inside warping away. And then they
Yeah.
don't really have that moment in it at all. In the closest moment we have with that in Into Darkness is when it's rising out of the ocean, right?
Right.
Which JJ does that shot twice in that movie, and once in 09 where it's rising out of a cloud or rising out of something. He loves that shot. And then, but in this movie,
It is pretty cool.
it's a cool shot. It is a beautiful shot. You're not wrong. But in this movie, we got to have like 60 seconds to a minute and a half of beautiful music and exploring this Yorktown, and I love it. I really do. But the thing that always annoyed me is that this thing is like perilously, I have a hard time saying that word, next to this nebula that they can't see on the other side of. It just feels really strange to build your expensive thing next to something you don't know what's over there. And it just that always seemed kind of strange to me. It's like, you don't know what's going to come through there. Why would you build it here? You would want to build it where you kind of know what's around you. Now, I know it was built for the intention of, furthering their exploration, being able to, go farther out. But I don't know. It just always seemed strange. Any things that you guys hit on that didn't work for you for this movie?
Well, I want to say one thing that this nebula, that maybe it's just intergalactic real estate. Like that's just where you set up shop. That's where you purchase that area. You didn't know if you're going to develop it. Suddenly people want to rent more. They don't want to buy houses, and here we are. This is what we have now.
We have beaches in the modern day. In the future, it's nebulous.
Yeah, why
We like
not?
nebula front property.
I really want to say this. I actually don't have a whole lot of gripes with this stuff. I mean, when you think about these like super colonies and stuff, that's what I think of when I think of sci-fi. It just makes sense to me. You've seen that imagery so much in other properties. To me, that's not really that big of a deal. I think humanity in general is known for pride issues and building these massive things that frankly could come tumbling down. So it's not so much a problem for me. I think the fact that they have that big massive station out in the middle of nowhere, I think the only problem with it is that you haven't really talked about it much. Like it's there's none of these things are really led up to at all. And like, yeah, we get it. You got really big ships and you've got all this technology, but why do we suddenly have this here? Like, I know we're exploring space.
Right.
Maybe we should have had a breadcrumb or two to get to that point.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's one of the things that kind of bothered me was the fact that we are exploring, and even I think in the IMDb synopsis, it's like they're at the edge of space. I mean, they've gone out further than ever before, but yet the Yorktown is pretty close, I guess, right around the corner. So it is kind of a coincidence, or not a coincidence, what's the word I'm looking for? Convenience. Thank you. That it's right there.
Well, I always took it as it was near the edge of their known space, right? Like, we're going to build, if we're going to start launching ships farther out that direction, we need a base of operations to launch them from, because we're now too far away from Earth and our other star bases to be able to effectively protect it. So therefore, or to resupply. It's a resupply issue, like what we're having now in the world. Supply chain issues. So I always thought that was why they built it. My point, and I love the station. I don't care that they completely changed the stations, right? From those kind of cylinders that look like giant tops, when the ships go inside them, to this, snow globe that looks a city. I don't.
The garage door opens.
Yeah, I'm okay with the new
Powered
design.
by Chamberlain. Sorry, I can just see like the husband and wife that are trading openers, and honey,
the wife backs into the garage door, forgetting she didn't open it.
But
exactly.
no, I'm okay with the design or whatever. My gripe was simply like, and maybe to your point, Mark, I don't know if you were making this point, but I took it from it, is that Well, they needed some real estate, and no one was willing to give them except this ugly piece of property that's by the Nebula that no one
Yeah.
wants to build next to. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Good old Karen Starfleet. Like, it's Nebula adjacent,
yeah.
but it's got a lot of potential.
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna throw in free photos with you buying the house, okay? So just think about it.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this though, when you first get to the Yorktown, they do name drop something right away. I don't know if you guys know about this or not, but they immediately name drop the NCC 2893, which was Jean-Luc Picard's first ship, the
The
Stargazer.
Stargazer. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
I
even
was yeah,
oh, go
go
ahead. I'd say the Yorktown is a name drop itself because
Yes,
when
that's right.
Roddenberry first wrote the script, it was the Yorktown was the name of the ship. It was an Enterprise.
Yeah.
But when they did the pilot, they're like Yorktown doesn't have a good enough ring to it. Like no one's gonna care about the Yorktown going through space. You got to change it. And Enterprise just made it was more catchy and it was more fitting. So you
Yeah.
had two like Star Trek things just boom right there. They
Yeah.
were and again they're ones that are like I said before, they're not like hitting you in the face with these. They're things where if you know what to look for, you'll see them here.
You know who else didn't hit us in the face? Dr. Carol Marcus, because she was omitted from the entire movie.
Yep, she becomes the Bond girl of the franchise.
She's like the
In
hopping
one,
man a
out the
little bit.
next.
Hey, we got too many white blonde people in this movie. Who are we gonna cut out of it? You know, let's yeah.
So
here's
I-
eye candy. Let's
well,
get
it
out
can't
of
be
here.
Kirk.
Yeah.
So I was
Yeah, right.
cruising the trivia, and it was asked. Justin Lin was asked, "Hey, so what happened to Carol Marcus?" And he said, "Well, we actually wrote some dialogue, basically saying, oh, she's left the Enterprise to go work on the Genesis project. Like we
Yeah.
wrote the lines, but somehow it just didn't even get shot.
Huh.
Like, just that just cracks me up. Like they literally wrote the dialogue, but they didn't shoot it. So,
But again, that is kind of nice that they thought about it. That Simon Pegg's like, hey, well, we can't just toss characters away. They had a pretty big weight in the last movie.
yeah,
And again, I just have a big weight in the greater universe here. So, but also just again weird that the never made it to shooting.
yeah. There's now, and this movie doesn't. It doesn't suffer, or this trilogy doesn't suffer the way that the sequel trilogy of Star Wars does. Back to the Star Wars, right? Being that like they're not connected. Like those movies all feel like three different films that have nothing to do with each other. They're trying to what I'm saying. Whereas this one, these like the torpedo that Scotty gets in, right? That was a leftover torpedo from Into Darkness, right? So we're still seeing that those kind of threads there, which I think is kind of fun. And I lost my train of thought completely because I was thinking of another idea or another thing I wanted to make sure that I said, and I forgot, but I'm going to say it anyway. And that's the one thing that I did like about this movie, because the 09 and the first two stay home, like they're near Earth almost the entire time. And at least this movie, like we're away from Earth, we're actually out in space doing those things, and I really I liked that part of it. It made it almost made the stakes seem more real because they can't just drive back home and have the ship fixed. So
Yeah, so they were legitimately trekking in this movie as
Yeah.
they were pretty far away from home.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Damn it, Joe.
I mean, my favorite Star Trek movie does have a character say that. So, what are you all just cosmonauts on some sort of Star Trek?
yeah,
It's like, he said the name.
they made Oscar-winning actor James Cromwell say you're on some kind of Star Trek. I
Star
love it.
Trek. Yep, love it.
In the theater
Oh,
as a
gosh.
kid, I went yay! 'Cause
Yay!
I would have
you
been
did
like,
it.
I don't know, how old was I? 14 when that
He
movie
did-
came out. 12.
He did the thing. He did the thing.
Yeah. It's
it's
it's the thing that when like when we record that episode, when we do that movie, at some point, Andrew, I think it's just safe to say that we're gonna review all 13 movies. I think that's fair to say. And
Okay.
and I And I'll definitely record that clip because I have a rule that if you say the name of your movie in the movie, I'm gonna I'm gonna capture it. And of course, if you say the name of your franchise, I'm definitely gonna capture it. So because it's not like someone ever goes, "Oh man, we're about to enter into some Star Wars" or something like that. At least no one says that. All right. Any other notes before I play some clips? Anything else we just have to talk about this movie? Because I
I
almost
did want to, yeah,
no. Go ahead, please. I interrupted you.
I did want to say that I thought it was hilarious that one of the characters was literally just because we had said the written in name for the character so much that we just went with it, and the character of Jayla on on the planet that they kind of pair up with in the script, Simon Pegg had always just written her as Jennifer Lawrence from I think it was Winter's Bane or Winter's Bone. It was like a 2010 movie.
Yeah.
And so they kept saying that this character is just Jennifer Lawrence of Winter's Bone. And over time, they said, yeah, we can't keep calling her that. We have to shorten that. That's not a name. So Jennifer Lawrence in Winter's Bone just became Jennifer Lawrence. Then it became J-Law. Then it became Jayla. So
I never knew that. That's fantastic.
That is pretty cool.
It's ridiculous, but also like on
Classic
brand
Simon
for
Pegg.
yeah, it's on brand for Simon Pegg. I love it.
That's
Yes.
great. Well, and we haven't talked about her yet. My gosh. So the movie we do get a new character besides the villain. We get a new character in Jayla, and she is played by Sophia Boutella.
Oh, yeah, Botella. Yeah.
And she's
Nutella.
great.
Yeah.
Nutella.
Yeah.
She's
It's a creamy, chocolatey hazelnut.
yeah, and she's fantastic. I mean, the handful of things that I've seen her in, mainly The Kingsman, with her knife feet.
Knife feet.
she's great, and I really like her in this movie. I was nice to get to meet a new character and have a new alien to talk to, and I don't know. I think she's fantastic in this, and I think she's acting really well too.
Yeah.
She's acting really well in broken English, which I have to think is even harder to try and figure out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who taught her that? How did you figure that out on that planet that you were created on?
She
Sorry.
learned from her house.
She learned from
Yeah,
her
that's
house.
right.
The house taught
Yeah.
her.
She did.
I
She did, that's right.
And speaking of that, I actually kind of like the way that they did. I understand in Star Trek, like the TV show, you can't have the universal translators work the way that they do in this movie, right? It has to be seamless, because otherwise, it would just be, to watch 7 seasons of hearing it twice, it would just drive you crazy.
Oh,
And plus,
yeah.
you'd have to make up a language for every week, the alien of the week, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm okay with it just being instantaneous. I am.
Yes.
But
Mhm.
I really liked how it worked in this one. When they put it on the lady whatever, and it was like on her collar, and
Mhm.
so she would say the words, and then you would hear the English translation. I really liked that. I thought that was clever, a clever way to do it. It's those little things like that this movie does. I think. And Andrew, you mentioned earlier like the warp bubble around it that's hugging it. Because warp drive has always been described in Trek and in actual science that if we were going to do it, the only way you can do it and not age yourself you'd have to have a bubble protecting your craft to fly through space. Otherwise, we're all going to age. Time would change, right?
Mhm.
And so have that shot of it flying through space as if space were liquid, and it was that bubble. I loved that. That was very cool.
Yeah, it just never occurred to a lot of people to think of space as the thing that was moving.
Yeah,
So-
exactly.
It never occurred to me it was space the thing that's moving. Yeah. Huh.
You're from the future? Yeah. Well, he is. Brilliant. Do they still have sandwiches there?
So here's something we haven't really talked about though, because we talked about how the Enterprise is typically its own character, but in just mercilessly killing it right away in the beginning. I mean, I feel like we do get that kind of time spent with the old model here, the old house, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like I feel like you do get that ample time. I mean, this movie is pretty much constantly paying homage to things that it has already done in its own trilogy, as well as the original the original series.
Mhm.
And so I don't think it was a bad idea to completely decimate that poor thing and then replace it with the throwback. I think it was a really great move. I actually think it's one of my favorite things about the movie is the fact that they do kind of earn an extra life by figuring out this ship was here the whole time.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's why for me it's swashbuckling and it's what the old series used to be. God damn it!
Yeah.
So
No, I
I love it.
I don't, maybe I misrepresented myself. I don't hate the movie. I don't hate this movie at all. I don't dislike the fact that they did that. Um, I, I think my point was simply that I was sad that they did it, like
Just hurt.
emotionally, wrecked that they killed the Enterprise in such a way, because it almost feels like it was really easy to destroy the Enterprise. Like
Mhm.
they never had a chance. Because even when I'm watching it for the umpteenth time that I've watched it, as soon as they realize, when Spock says we are not equipped for this type of engagement, that's literally when Kirk should say warp us out of here. Like, but
Mhm.
instead he's Kirk. He wants to stay and try to fight it out a little bit before he realizes that they're in trouble. And so then they don't get it. They don't. There's no way for them to escape. But there's a moment where every time I watch it, I'm like, if you just get out, just warp out. Don't go back. Just go forward
Mhm.
and get out of there. Like you still have a shot to survive the ship. But anyway, obviously. Now here's another throwback to their own trilogy. Is in the first. So every time we've seen, I can't say every time. In the original series, right? If you have to, evacuate the ship, you have to get on shuttlecraft.
Mhm.
And in the original series, they only had like 3 shuttlecraft, right?
Mhm.
It was like the Titanic. They didn't have enough lifeboats ever. And then in the '09 one, the Kelvin had like 30 or so of the shuttlecraft, and that's how they escape. You have to get to the shuttlecraft to escape. So when he says get to your Kelvin escape pods, the idea was like they decided we need to build escape pods on the bridge and throughout the ship in case there's an emergency and we don't have time to run all the way down the length of the ship to get to
Mhm.
the shuttle bay. I've seen this movie a whole bunch of times, and it wasn't until like not this last showing, but the previous viewing, where I noticed he said, "Get to your Kelvin pods." I thought that was cool. Again, really clever stuff. Just like you get that clever, but you can't put Carol Marcus in a.
Hey, the technical director for this film was also named James Kirk. So I mean, they were getting some little details right in here,
Nice.
right? By accident, or I don't think that's an accident at all. I think they're just like looking at qualified candidates, and then suddenly they pull this resume like halfway out of the stack, and they go, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, hold on,
Ooh, hey there.
Yeah, what was that name?
Yeah,
It's James Kirk. Hire this man."
Yeah, what's his experience?
doesn't matter.
He worked on like a play once.
He worked
Fuck
on a
yes.
Yeah,
Oh
Yep.
my gosh.
that's his qualifications. I think he did like a 4th grade play about Johnny Appleseed. Let's get him in here.
I'm actually trying to find this guy so I can see what he's done. I can't find him. You said he was under the what? He was the set designer?
He was the effects director. Yeah.
I'm still scrolling. Special effects by. It's all in alphabetical order for me. This is not very fun podcasting. Visual effects. All right, whatever. I trust you. I can't find it, but I trust you.
I
Find
think
him and tell me what he's done. I'm curious.
I think he actually was he contributed to Wonder Woman 1984,
Oh, that's a
Men
shame.
in Black International, The Predator, Pacific Rim Uprising,
Oh
uh,
man, that's not a good resume for him. Just throwing
Stranger
that-
Things.
Oh, there we
Stranger
go.
Things.
That
Yeah.
one helped. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's an actor named James
Heard of them.
Kirk, who
Hmm.
played Ronnie Drake in X-Men 2, the Flame Pyro.
Ah.
So you got an actor named James Kirk. Sorry, that wasn't for you. That was for The Fly. So, all right. Anyway, anything else? Anything else we need to say before I move on? Oh, last thing I will say this: Michael Giacchino once again bringing it on the score. It's amazing.
Yeah.
The music is so good for a night at the Yorktown or on the Yorktown, and it's just so beautiful. This score is so good. He just kills it
Yeah.
every time.
Yep, and
Y-
it was actually kind of nice that he didn't rely so much on the past body of work that he had done for the
mhm.
previous two movies, except for, of course, when we get that tour of the Yorktown, he brings back Enterprising Young Men,
Yeah.
which is the same score that when we first see the Enterprise in the 2009 movie. So he brings that back to kind of get the same feels going through the audience. But other than that, he kind of he explores and tries new things with this film. So that was appreciated that he didn't just try rehashing his own work for the most part.
Yeah.
This might be a little controversial, but
Okay.
speaking as a musician, I think that his work with this franchise is the best part about the franchise.
I don't
That's
think
just
that's
that's my opinion.
controversial at all. I think that there's probably a lot of people that would agree, honestly.
It's some of the best music in cinema that I've heard in a long time. I feel like this kind of put him on. I mean, I know he was already doing things before this, but I think this elevated his career quite a bit. And now you see him all over the place.
His story, Giacchino's, and we might talk about it more next week when we do our Music of Trek episode. But
You say music of Shrek?
Music of Trek episode.
Oh, you had she's
No,
No, not gonna
you had
do
me
it.
as a believer the second.
yes.
You saw our faces. We got excited. We were believers, and now it's
You
gone.
had me in the first half. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Ah,
But like his story is really neat because when he started out, he he started out because he was working at the studio at a video game studio, and he was hired to be the music like consultant. And so his job was to hire the guy to come in to write the music, and then just decided, I'm just going to hire myself to write the music. They don't care. So his first composer credit is Gargoyles, the video game in '95, where he really kind of took off was like Medal of Honor in '99,
yeah.
Mhm.
and he did a bunch of the Medal of Honor games, and then Call of Duty in 2003, and then let's see, I think his first film was something called. Hold on, there's a bunch of other ones. I mean, his first hit was The Incredibles.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that was his first time where he was really kind
And
of.
some people might say that kind of put him on the map, and it did because that was a kind of iconic soundtrack or score rather. But I think this Star Trek just elevated him from there.
And
Greatly.
his career started off because of the advice of Fred Durst, which is if you don't care, then we don't care. And he just totally he just went with it.
Well, the
So
crazy thing is I'm looking at his whatever his body of work. He had already done a Trek movie before he did the '09 Trek. He did something called Star Trek: The Final Darkness in 2004, and it is like a direct to TV or I mean it's one of those like fan made things
Oh,
where
okay.
there's only one actor that has a picture on IMDb, but it's an hour and 25-minute. Hired scavengers discover the remains of a Federation ship on a frozen world. They report back to their superiors soon after. Science Officer Roberts is questioned by a secret branch of Starfleet to find out what she knows. Okay.
yeah.
I mean,
I
whatever.
told you.
Yeah.
It's in my log.
But then he goes on
Come
to
on.
do.
Points for originality on that.
Yeah. But he goes on to do Sky High, and then The Family Stone, and then Mission Impossible 3, Alias, Lost, of course, and then Ratatouille. He wins an Oscar for Ratatouille.
Oh, who doesn't love Ratatouille though?
I know, it's so good, and Up and Star Trek. I mean, just Speed Racer, Cloverfield. So, like, just Andrew, I don't think it's really all that far off to say that the music of this trilogy, it might be the best part of the trilogy. I don't really think that's all that crazy to say. So, all right. Last thing I want to say, and then I'm going to play clips. I know I said that like a couple minutes ago, but
Midwest goodbye in podcast form.
yes, we do it the South too. It's a thing. Is that I know there was a little bit of controversy making his character gay. Now, they did show that he had a daughter, which was cool because we get to meet the daughter in adult form in Star Trek Generations, which is neat. And because she's the helmsman of the Enterprise B.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. But some people were pretty mad that they made Sulu gay. And even George Takei was like, I never played Sulu as gay, but, it was kind of an homage for him, right? The actor, or the human, I should say. So,
I don't think anyone should really be upset about that. I mean, mostly because the scene itself, it's like, yeah, he's gay, and he walks away with his husband, and his husband just lightly puts his hand on his back, and they walk away with their daughter.
It's a pretty vanilla gay scene.
Yeah,
I was gonna say
out there.
the only thing you could do that's like even less subtle is like the old, romance scene in a movie where they pan away and then they blow the candle out. Like that's the
yeah.
like there's not much there to be offended by.
I don't think people were offended by the act. I think they were offended by the idea that and again, most actual Trek fans are like, it doesn't matter, like at all.
Right.
No one cares.
And everyone's a little gay.
Yeah.
Like don't come at me and saying that you're not a little gay. Like just don't even start with that. Like everyone's a little gay.
I feel like there's a Ron White joke.
There is a Ron White
coming
joke in there, yeah.
Actually, I wasn't really a blue collar comedy guy, but I just don't think there's any reason to be upset about it.
There isn't. But again, normal, logical people aren't. It's
right.
Yeah.
All right. Enough of that.
So, all right.
Time for some clips. And boy, again, Andrew knows this. If I'm doing a movie that I really like, I'm going to get the clips. So here we go. Brace yourselves for some clips.
Forebodings like we do.
Yeah, that's very true. Your Excellency, this gift
They're a
is
crowd of untrustworthy thieves who want to see us murdered in our own beds.
This beloved artifact is a symbol of trust and peace.
They want to chop us into pieces and roast us over a fire.
I don't think that's true.
And eat us.
What?
What? Now, I will say this. It is a funny scene, and then he gets beamed back and brings back two of them with him.
Yeah.
But, that's kind of kidnapping, right? I mean, it's kind of funny later when we see Keenser walking around with one as, like, a pet, and he's like, oh, you're still not wearing pants? But, did you just kidnap the leader of this race of people that you were, of these aliens that you were trying to, broker a peace deal with?
He just works for me now. Works for me now.
Yeah, he's just there.
He's just
part of the crew, part of the ship, just like in Pirates of the Caribbean. You just build him right into a wall.
Yeah. I mean, if he has a job and wants to stay there, then that's fine. If he wants to be part of Starfleet, that's fine. But it just seems strange that it's just like, oh, he's little. I guess he's my pet now.
And they made him a red shirt, so
Yeah.
he might not be there very long anyway.
Yeah, there is that.
I was going to say, it's like when you finally convince your parents to use a smartphone, and they're just like, you know what? I'm here now. This does what I need to do. I think I'll stick around.
Right. Here's a little bit that we talked about earlier. I also do like this. They're having McCoy and Kirk are having a little quiet moment, talking about his birthday and his dad and this moment and he says, "Oh, I swiped this from Chekhov's Foot Locker." And they both go, I thought he was a vodka guy because he's he's Russian, but I love the idea that the captain is stealing from one of his crew, and I don't know. There's just something funny about that. Okay, here's the line though.
He joined Starfleet because he believed in it. I joined on a dare.
You joined to see if you could live up to him. You spent all this time trying to be George Kirk. And now you're wondering just what it means to be Jim. Why you're out here.
There you go. It's a good line. Because, I mean, and it's a great line from the, Star Trek 09 when he says, your dad saved 800 lives. I dare you to do better. It's a great line. It's good stuff. All right, here's McCoy saying funny things.
Is impressive.
Aye, she's a beauty, isn't she?
What a damn monstrosity. Couldn't we just rent some space on a planet?
Showing geographical favoritism among inducted Federation worlds could cause diplomatic tension.
Oh, you don't think that looks tense? Looks like a damn snow globe in space, just waiting to break.
Oh, that's the spirit, Bones.
Space is nothing but death and disease wrapped in darkness.
And silence.
Hate to break it to you, but Starfleet does operate in space.
Yep. Yeah, he's got some great lines. One of my other favorite lines is like when I sent you there to work, not to flirt, in the second one.
Oh my God! Oh yeah, what
are these legendary hands? How can these legendary hands help you, Bones? Yeah.
Oh my God.
Here's Spock's swearing.
Okay. All right, Spock. I just got one question. What's your favorite color?
I fail to see the relevance.
Ow! Yeah, they say it hurts less if it's a surprise.
If I may adopt a parlance with which you are familiar, I can confirm your theory to be horse shit.
I like it.
Oh, yep. Love it all. Look at this McCoy's bedside manner.
Yeah.
The whole thing. Favorite color. Boom. Hits it. Can you imagine this guy like giving shots to children?
All right, little Jimmy, what's your favorite color? Blue. Stab. I mean, I guess they had hypersprays. I guess it wouldn't be too bad, but still. That's just funny stuff. I do like a good sweary Spock, because in like the fourth one he gets a little sweary, which is a lot of fun, and of course he says in the end of 6, he says, "I believe if I were human, I believe my response would be go to hell, if I were human." So we mentioned this earlier, and I captured it because I didn't know if we were going to talk about it, but we did.
This is the USS Franklin, sir. Can you believe it? First Earth ship capable of Warp 4, witnessing in the Gagarin radiation belt in the early 2160s.
I remember that from the...
Yeah, except it wasn't. But anyway. Also, if you're going to write the movie, you got to make sure you give yourself some good lines, too.
I have an idea, sir. But I'm going to need your permission.
Why would you need my permission?
Because if I mess it up, I don't want it to be just my fault.
Oh, it's great. Then what did he do?
Well, at least I won't die alone.
Well, that's just typical.
I guess if you haven't watched the movie, you know that he got Spock gets beamed away as he says that. This line makes me laugh every time.
Oh, good to see you in one piece, Doctor.
Oh, am I?
I love that. I always love that line. It cracks me up. Just his delivery is so great because like McCoy is always like he hates beaming anyway. He hates it. And he's always complaining about it. And so just the fact that he gets beamed on a transporter that wasn't designed for people and, barely works. So you get...
Oh. Good to see you in one piece, Doctor.
Oh, am I? I feel like my innards have been to a barn dance.
Aye, well, these old transporters were only ever used for cargo, but a few modifications seem to do the trick. I thought it was best to beam you one at a time, though, in case you got spliced.
I love it. I
Mhm.
absolutely love it. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they very rapidly make the jump from one at a time to just groups of 20 at a time.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, I thought that too. It's like, I guess he was able to make some more
I think it's fine.
modifications or whatever. I mean, I guess they had the pattern enhancer thingies.
I mean, they're just playing it safe, and clearly his insides were just fine because McCoy is ever only like 2 steps away from just being an old-fashioned Southern doctor. But in my day, we would do this instead. So, he likes doing things his way.
Yeah, exactly. It's just with his special ingredient in his beans, right, Andrew? All right. Now, I captured this one just so I can set up the punchline for Andrew. So, once again, Andrew, your wife sent me some audio. Now, for some reason, she uses a different name. She doesn't call you Andrew. Maybe, in your early days of the relationship, she didn't know who you were. But this is what happened after the first time you tried to kiss her.
Okay.
Let's never do that again.
I agree, Gypsy.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there.
Yeah.
All right. You can't have a Star Trek movie without a damn it, Jim.
Next time you have a piece of pipe stuck in your transverse, call a plumber.
Just make sure you find a way to break those things.
If it gets heady, I'll beam you straight back.
Energize. You're gonna do great.
Damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not a...
I love it. All right. What kind of music do we have?
Major choice, Lassie?
I have the beat and shouting.
Yeah, I got the beat and shouting. Now, I didn't capture the part where he says, "Is this classical music?" Why, yes, it is. I didn't capture that, but I thought it was.
It's a fun little thing there. That, I mean, the song is old even for us right now, but to call it classical was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did make me think. Well, if they heard Beethoven, would they call that like
is
ancient? What would they call it?
Yeah, ancient classics. Or
It belongs in a museum, whatever it is.
yes, it does. It belongs in a museum. All right. Speaking of a museum, this is our game, and it is now sponsored by.
Help Open Pike Night celebrate hashtag where November has gone before. This year, from November 1st through 30th, go to openpike.com/join us and leave us a voicemail or message to be entered to win a Hallmark Keepsake Strange New Worlds Enterprise light-up ornament. 1 entry per person, and remember, openpike.com is the easiest way for you to get your voice into the ears of the people who make Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Make any bridge just a little bit brighter with Open Pike Night and your brand new tiny flagship.
And now for some more bad news. Ready?
This is the game called Hey, Did You Notice? This is a game where normally Andrew comes up with some really hard questions, but this week Sean did the questions, and they're not actually hard at all because sometimes it's actually fun when people win. This is a game where we're going to go back and forth between... we could actually have it so that it's Mark and Andrew on a team versus Joe. I think that's actually probably more fair. And because... and I don't know. I think I've already sent you guys stickers. If I haven't, I'll send you some stickers. But anyway, this is a game called Hey, Did You Notice? And so I'm going to ask you some questions, and whoever goes first will answer it. And if they don't get it right, then the other team will get a chance to steal. I have 5 questions, or maybe 6. Best of 5. Are we going to do Joe versus Andrew and Mark, or how do you want to do this? Seriously.
I mean, that is pinning a lot on me.
Well,
I know I wore the shirt.
I'm fine to
go it alone.
They can be on.
I'm good with whatever.
Fine, show versus show. That's fine.
right.
Let's do that. Joe and I are used to working together, so why not?
Let's do it. All right. This question is for you two then. Now, again, some of these are kind of easy because I'm not Andrew. But let's just see how things go. And in fact, this one, I already played the answer. So here we go. On what day are they in their mission?
No.
966.
966. That is right. Ding. I still don't have a sounder for that, but that's okay. All right. This one goes to Andrew. What is the serial number for the Franklin?
gosh, I knew you were going to ask that too. Because I was paying attention to the last number that was shown on the view screen before it cuts off. Like you think the ship's going to crash as it's plummeting down. Because it says distance to impact and there's a number.
Yeah.
That was the number I was focused on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because when he says, "Is this a ship or is this your ship?" and she says, "No, it's your ship," and she shows the placard, and it says the Franklin, and then it says,
"Yeah, I saw it, but I don't remember what it is."
Okay.
I'm gonna just take a stab at it and
go
say
ahead.
1568. I don't know.
Okay. Joe.
This one actually makes me really mad that I have forgotten it, because I remember I looked it up before the movie came out, because I remember seeing the Franklin in the previews. I'm like, that looks like an NX class starship. It looks like a little off, but it looks pretty close to it. So I looked it up, and I remember seeing it and looking at it, and I'm like, okay, so it's not an NX class. And I also know it's not NCC either. So that is what's bugging me. Is
So,
that
I
am not remembering it.
are we still on a team, or are we like?
Yeah, go
are
ahead.
we-
You can still answer, yeah.
No, I thought it was 326.
It is. So 326 is the number. What's the first two letters?
No, it's NX. I thought it's an NX.
Is it NX?
It is. It
326?
is an NX.
It is NX. Okay, so okay, there we go. Team. I
There you
doubted
go.
myself.
Ding.
You got it. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
NX
So
326.
so NX doesn't have anything to do with the class. It has it's the type of designation. So NX means prototype.
Oh yeah.
So the Enterprise being an NX-01 means that it is a prototype. When they came out with the NCC, they didn't have anything for it, and so they've kind of retconned it to say it's like Northern Construction something, or like it doesn't really have a real meaning. So they just kind of made one, and I think like the 1701 for the Enterprise was like the home address of Gene Roddenberry as a kid or something. So, for what it's worth, okay, how about a bonus question for anyone who answers it right? What does 326? What is the relevance of that? What meaning does it have?
Was it like an original air date for the series?
No.
Dang it. Okay.
Any guess, Andrew or Mark?
No idea.
If my face isn't giving it away.
It's Leonard Nimoy's birthday. March
Okay.
26th. All right.
Gotcha.
This goes back to Mark and Joe, right? Yeah. What significance does the word beyond have to the Trek universe?
Is it just because it's in like the actual title, like going where no one's gone before, boldly going? No,
Nope.
That's not it. No, I'm not sure.
I have no idea.
Okay. Andrew?
Well, as I've said, I don't know much about Star Trek, so I don't know.
Beyond is the first word used in the theme song that actually has lyrics. So Gene Roddenberry wrote lyrics to the original theme song, which goes, "Beyond the rim of starlight, my love is wandering in star flight. I know he'll find in star-clustered reaches, love, strange love, a star woman teaches." There's more, but
That sounds very Japanese, like anime opening of
kinda
some
does.
sort.
All right. This is to Andrew, right? Yeah.
Okay.
The picture shown when Spock is looking at the picture of his, when he's looking at this picture of Spock Prime.
Yeah.
In the original crew, that was a picture that was taken from a movie of the original movies. What original movie was it taken from?
Final Frontier.
Yes, that is right.
That was a total guess.
Numero cinco. Yeah, cinco. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Good job. Okay. Real easy one, but I just wanted to throw it in there just in case. What is the name of the song that they use to destroy the ships?
Oh, that's Sabotage.
Yeah.
Yep, that one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wanted to have a nice, easy one. Here's a not so easy one for Andrew, but again, that's because he's always mean to me. Here we go. Including the drink she's holding, how many drinks does Jayla have at the end of the party?
13.
Oh, Mark or Joe?
I thought it was 10, but
Because she's pounding him, isn't she? Like
She
she doesn't feel anything from him.
yeah, she's trying to take the edge off, but the edge is still there.
See, and I'm wondering if it's more than 13.
There was a lot of glasses on that
There was a
table. I
lot,
didn't count.
That's the thing. I don't know if I'm ever gonna get how many there are there. Let's just say 17.
My reaction was because Andrew was so close. It's 14.
Oh.
All right.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
all right. I did have a bonus question, but we've literally said the answer already in the show, and we don't need it. But that was, what military service did Captain Edison belong to? And Joe already
That was
mentioned
Mako.
the Makos. So,
In case you're curious, the last numbers shown on the screen before impact was 1971.
nice.
Just so you know.
18. That's pretty
See?
close.
Yeah, that's pretty close to the ground.
All right. Great job. Time for this.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
We're going to do top 3, and this week we just simply said, name your top 3 Star Trek films. We got 13 films to choose from. So, which are your top 3? And Mark will go first.
So I'm not going to say Wrath of Khan just because I think everybody's going to say that for their number one. So I'm going to go First Contact, just because for me that was really like the majority of my early experience with Star Trek. Yeah, and I know people are going to be like, "Oh, he's not a fan of Star Trek, is he?" It's like, well, you might be partially right on that. So yeah, so I'm going to say that Beyond is actually my number 2.
All right.
And Generations is my number 3, just because of how different it was. And I know not a lot of people love Generations, but I personally did. I thought that was a great one. So there you have it.
It's all right. I have a fondness for it too, but that's because it's the first film my dad ever took me to see in the theater. So I have a nostalgia. It kind of bumps it up. Joe.
Beyond is my 3, as far as this goes. Because again, for everything we've pointed out, I think it's the funnest of the Abrams movies. So I just really enjoyed it. So that's why it's my number 3. Wrath of Khan also did not make my list. My number 2 is from the original series movies, and that's actually Undiscovered Country. And I remember because that was actually the first of the original series movies I ever saw. So it was kind of the first experience for me. It had a good blend of action and story, so I really liked that one. Even though like I would not ever argue against someone who says Wrath of Khan's the better film. It's definitely the better film, but I just like this one more. It's my favorite for those. And like Mark, First Contact is my favorite movie. To me,
Ooh.
it was everything it needed. It was this perfect Picard movie, this white whale idea of him chasing the Borg. Even like again, like how the Enterprise is very much a character in that movie, and how when they're getting ready to destroy it, and he's looking at the bridge and saying goodbye. We hardly knew you, and then finally letting go. He's like, okay, well there are still 23 letters left in the alphabet, so will be more Enterprises. But just everything that movie was amazing to me. Absolutely loved it. So that's my number 1.
All right. My 3. Again, I also broke our rule for the show and said that this is my favorite, my third favorite, excuse me. And I love First Contact. First Contact would probably be 4 for me. My number 2 is Wrath of Khan, and my number 1 is Undiscovered Country. It is my favorite. And again, like your point of it's not the better. Undiscovered Country isn't the best film, but it's my favorite. In fact, I just watched it not 5 days ago with my son for the first time, and he
Awesome.
enjoyed it. Though I was really annoyed with HBO. By the way, really annoyed with HBO. They cut out two. They're tiny scenes, but they cut them out. There's the scene where, when after they've talked about the chancellor and the president have had their kind of video talk, right? And then, or not the chancellor, I'm sorry, the president of the Federation is talking with the Klingon ambassador. And so he leaves, and then in walks the Romulan ambassador and Colonel West and the other brass from Starfleet, and they show this plan on a piece of paper, flip chart, how they're going to go rescue the guys, right? That scene's cut. Then later at the end, when they have the assassination attempt on the president, and Scotty shoots the guy out of the window and he falls, there is no revelation that that's a human in a costume. It's just, you think it's a Klingon, it's dead on the ground. And so in that moment, I'm like, that's not right. You changed it. The reason why that plot matters is because it shows that the Federation and the Klingons were conspiring together. And that's why they did that. So I don't understand. Why cut that, HBO? Why did you do that? Because it's not cut on the Blu-ray. It's not in a director's cut. It's very weird. Anyway, I was obviously very annoyed with it. So I'll be all right. All right. So Twitter was extremely active on this, which I find fascinating. Across the Stars podcast said Wrath of Khan, First Contact Undiscovered. Audie Norman, who we're going to have on the show in a few months or so, says First Contact, Star Trek 09, and Into Darkness. And so he also kind of started watching through TNG.
A contemporary.
Jesse from Open Pike says Wrath of Khan, First Contact, and The Voyage Home. Let's see. The FSF Popcast says Wrath of Khan, Star Trek 09, and The Search for Spock. Did not expect to see that movie in a top 3.
I mean, it's only Kramer's, but I'm happy he's got it there too.
Let's see. Kelly Sins. Oh, I can't pronounce that. Her Twitter tag is antipodal. I can say that. Wrath of Khan, First Contact, and Into Darkness, which is again interesting. Now, I will give a little behind the scenes. We were supposed to have Tucky Williams on this episode. Not this episode, but yeah, this actually was supposed to be this week. We were supposed to have Tucky Williams, actress, who I interviewed, and we just couldn't work the schedules out and whatever. But her absolute favorite film is Into Darkness. But we had already reviewed it, and I told her that we'd already reviewed it, which really bummed her out. So I think we were going to end up doing, this movie. And then we just couldn't get the schedules to work out. So it was really interesting that you guys also picked it. But Into Darkness is her favorite, which I find really interesting because there's so many people I know that hate that movie. So anyway.
Yeah, Star Trek 09, number 3. Generations has a special place in my heart, and Wrath of Khan, number 1.
Nice,
cool,
because it is the best.
Yes. All right, time for my clip soundboard.
Wait, what's supposed to happen?
This is where we're going to give this movie a score from 0 to 10, and we will start this week with Joe.
I'm giving this one an 8.5. It is not perfect. There are definitely things it could improve on, but also I don't think this movie ever shies away from exactly what it's meant to be. And I think this is a good blend of some of that old Trek philosophizing, because I had to go Zoolander there. But yeah, it does a little bit of philosophy there. It also has plenty of action for more of what this brand of Star Trek is. And it doesn't necessarily do either perfectly, but it does both of them well. Every character in here is well fleshed out, well acted. There's attention to detail, like we've pointed out several times in here, of like just everything that's in the universe and little homages that it pays for like the franchise. But at the same time, nothing's perfect. So that's basically why I just kind of knock it down a little bit. Great score, great everything. Sure, could have done a few things better, but not much.
Okay. Mark.
I think I'm a bit of a philosophizer too. And I think that I would give this one a 7.5. And the reason why is because I know that for me, this is a film that I really appreciate, I really enjoy, and I think is one of the probably the best out of the Kelvin trilogy. But I know that not everybody thinks the way that I do. So even though I enjoy it, I'm not going to give it a perfect rating or anywhere close to it because I can accept that it isn't a perfect film, kind of like what Joe said. I do think that there are some things that kind of make you nod your head or tilt your head as you listen to it and you're like, or you watch it. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I still like it's kind of weird for me to say that, isn't it? Like, it's not a perfect film, but I really love it.
No,
but
there's nothing wrong with that. I love
but
Waterworld,
she's
and
no
that's a
5
bad
out of
movie.
7.
no, she's not a 5 out of 7. So yeah, I do think that at points the movie is paced a little odd, but for me, the majority of the points are going towards the fact that it's a really solid homage to the original films. And if you don't feel something when Spock Prime, is you're opening up the box and you're seeing all the trinkets and the stuff left behind, and you see that photo from Star Trek Five. I mean, the first time I saw that, it's like you knew something was coming, and you see it, and it still absolutely guts you. And I already felt very wistful and the oldest that I've ever felt watching that movie, seeing Kirk kind of act like Batman via The Dark Knight Rises. Like he's just beat up and he's only 30 years old, but the guy's like you just think he's a geriatric upstairs. Like he's feeling it. And so yeah, I think there's a lot going on with this movie that works really well. There's some stuff that doesn't, but I think the tone and just the overall vibes and like the themes that you feel from it, I think it's better than any of the other Kelvin films for that reason.
Yeah, I got you. All right, Andrew.
Well, she's a 7, but she's a little rowdy. No, like on IMDb, it's a 7 out of 10, and I'm gonna stick right with it. It's not a bad film. It's really beautiful. The score is awesome. Great cast. For me, I don't know that I know enough about Star Trek to really compare it as I was attempting to do earlier. But I still, in my mind, I feel like it's just not quite the storytelling device as the original series and all that. So it's a little too action for me to call it classic Star Trek, but it's still a good film. I like it, and we just need more Enterprise.
Okay. I'm gonna give it. So I do like this movie a lot. It's my favorite of the Kelvin trilogy. I think it's a solid film. I think it holds up. It did have some issues. I mean, a few of them that I've mentioned. Some of the other issues were simply the budget got too big, and there's still some bad CGI work. I mean, we didn't even talk about the drones when they're walking around; they look kind of bad. And when the bike with Kirk and Jayla are beamed in, that's some bad CGI work too. I mean, this is a $185 million movie and with some bad CGI. Part of that was because it was rushed. They really wanted this to have a summer air date because they wanted it to coincide with the 50th anniversary of Star Trek, the show. They were really pushing that, and I think some of the movie kind of suffered as a result of that, and so they had to spend more money than they needed to, which is why Chris Pine came out and said recently, if they make another one, just make it a good story, don't make it a huge spectacle, which I think is what a lot of people felt that this one was trying to be, was a spectacle. So it does have some bad stuff to it, but I think it's still a really fantastic movie. So I'm going to give it I can't give it an 8. I'm going to give it an 8.1. There. That makes the math look a little bit better. No, I can't do that either.
Join me. Come to the 0.5.
Okay. Well, no, 8.5. Okay, yeah, 8.5. That works.
It's an 85%.
Well,
It's a
but I
B.
mean, it gives
Good.
the overall grading a 7.875, which I think is good. So there you have it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. 7.875. That's a good score. Gentlemen, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on. Please tell my listeners where they can find more of you. Just don't give your Twitter handle because it won't exist anymore.
Well, you can find us on basically your social media poison of choice. We're on basically all of them. Apparently, Twitter will expire eventually here soon, but we're there. You can find us at Digital Dissection with all of those. We even check our email, believe it or not, and that's at Digital Dissection Podcast at gmail.com. And I did get that right this time because I have accidentally sent you to the wrong place before, and I'm not doing that again. So you can find us, like we said, we're on Twitch. I think very sparsely these days, but yeah, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. We're a bit everywhere. You can find us at Digital Dissection.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of these shorts and like little things on TikTok and Instagram that kind of augment the shows that we put out. So if you ever want some did you know content, we're doing that a lot lately.
Yep, and physically we are in Wisconsin. So if you're hoping to bump into us on the street, you have to be roughly here.
That's fair.
And in that case, it's did you know content.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well,
Definitely.
don't you know content?
Yeah, and a little ope in case we were wasting your time because you already knew it there.
Jesus. Oh, it's painfully Midwest. Oh my God.
I love
wow.
it. I absolutely love it. All right. Thank you guys so much. This has been an absolute pleasure and a treat to have you guys back on. And I will say next week, again, we're very excited to announce that we're going to have Eric from Cinematic Sound Radio coming back on the show to do a full episode of the music of Trek. I'm very excited for that. It's going to be an absolute blast. So until then, this is Sean saying on behalf of Andrew, Joseph, Mark, and Sam, this is Sean saying thank you all so much for listening, and I will see you next week for the music of Star Trek.
This is Cheapseat Reviews.